following are two in a series of workshops presented by National Educational Consultant Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu, especially for and to teachers and parents concerned with the well-being of black children and their education process. In the first program, titled Developing Positive Self-Images and Discipline in Black Children, Dr. Kunjufu presents realistic guidelines and positive developmental concepts for helping black children cope and achieve. That will be followed by Dr. Kunjufu's well-known workshop called Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys, which is an in-depth look at the when, why, and what is preventing large numbers of black boys from developing into strong, responsible black men. But first, join Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu for his presentation of Developing Positive Self-Images and Discipline in Black Children.
Before we look at the workshop on developing positive self-images and discipline in black children, my major position remains the same. I believe the children are actors, and they act out what they see in us. If the teaching 201 cannot get along with teaching 203, you have the exact same problems with children. If parents tell their children, don't do as I do, but do as I say, they have not taught them what's correct. They're taught them to be inconsistent. I repeat, children are actors, and they act out what they see in us. And I believe my workshops can be informative, but they cannot change attitude, and I'm very disappointed about that. I work hard with regards to research, but certain things cannot be changed, especially with regards to attitude. What am I getting at? As we begin to look at trying to close the gap or improve black student achievement, my major concern is you cannot teach a child that you do not love. And there are large numbers of children in classrooms where they are not loved. I also believe you cannot teach a child you do not respect. And there are large numbers of black children in classrooms where they are not respected. And then last but not least, I also believe you cannot teach a child you do not culturally understand. In other words, we have integration, or should I be clear, desegregation. But we have many teachers who do not understand the culture of black children. And you cannot teach a child you do not culturally understand. The program is called Closing the Gap, trying to close the gap between black and white student achievement, trying to increase black student achievement. For example, the average white European child on the Iowa, California test is scoring at the 60th percentile nationwide. The average white European child in America on the Iowa, California test is scoring at the 60th percentile nationwide. The average black African-American child in the same test is scoring at the 30th percentile nationwide. Now, what explains this 30-point differential? There are at least 5 different reasons, and I'm in trouble if you give me more than the 5 I'm looking for. But there are at least 5 reasons for this gap. What do you think contributes to this differential between the average white child scoring the 60th percentile on the Iowa and California test and the average black child scoring the 30th percentile on the same test? What are some of the reasons? Okay, and your first name is? Shirley, couldn't even get a water break because you answered so quickly. So Shirley, I think it's number 4 on my list, and that's the cultural bias of the test. And Shirley, I like to call that the curriculum, not just the test, but the curriculum in terms of their cultural biasness. I want to also look at the issue of methodology, learning styles, and I want to look at what you just mentioned, and that's evaluation design, the test itself. Any other reasons besides the curriculum, methodology, evaluation design? Any others? Yes. First name?
Gwen.
Gwen.
Perhaps expectations?
From whom?
From the teacher.
Okay. Very honest group, Gwen. Gwen, that's number 5 on my list. It's not that I place in this category because of its significance or importance. I simply want to save the best for last. I want to talk about everybody else first, and then we'll begin to talk about you. So, Gwen, we'll be getting to you in a few minutes. Any others? Yes, first name?
Richard.
Richard.
Expectations from the parents.
Okay, and Richard, that's number 2 on my list. Parental involvement and support. I was wondering if this group would blame the one we love to blame the most. That's the parents. First name?
Lois.
Lois.
I think the child's expectations.
And Lois, do you mind if we also connect that to self-esteem for students? Okay, so in this case, we're looking at student self-esteem. Now, there's one more. There's probably a lot more. But the other one that we have to have in order to continue, and that's why we have it in the number 1 position, it's so easy to, so difficult to identify, and that's the peer group. We are very concerned about the peer group. Now, I'm very proud of this particular group because in most workshops across the country, beside these 4, and the one we were also looking for was the peer group, many times people say, well, it's ability. There's at least 1 or 2 persons in this audience that believe it's ability. And then every once in a while we get someone who also looks at the environmental factors, racism, economic deprivation, sexism. And we acknowledge that. There's no way in the world that these stats are not also affected by economic deprivation and racism and sexism. But see, in an hour workshop like this, we may not be able to change how Ronald Reagan thinks, or David Rockefeller, or Caspar Weinberger. We may not be able to change what white men make, $403 a week, and black women make about $234. We may not be able to change that. But we can change the influence of the peer group, parental involvement, student self-esteem, the curriculum, teacher expectation. At least we can make an attempt at that. Now, as I said earlier, there's at least one person in this room that may think it's ability. I want to pause and look at this. Because if it's ability, then black colleges, independent black schools, the Effective Schools Project, magnet schools cannot produce a quality product. If it was ability, then black colleges that only receive 25% of the students, but produce 50% of the graduates, cannot produce that kind of product. And if you think they're inferior, those students that go on to graduate training at white universities and receive their degrees, 75% of them receive their undergraduate training in a black undergraduate school. So if it was ability, the same ability the other schools work with, then black colleges, independent black schools, magnet schools cannot produce a quality product. It is not ability. And since we cannot change environmental factors, let's now look at the other five. Peer group, parental involvement, student self-esteem, the curriculum, and teacher expectations. We apologize for going as fast as we are. We're condensing a 6-hour workshop into about an hour. And the first area I want to look at is the issue of the peer group. What we're concerned with here is that we believe that schools are more than academic institutions. They are also social institutions. In other words, very few of us have been trained on monitoring the peer group. And yet this may be one of our greatest competitors or influences on the minds of our children. It has gotten so bad that when black boys want to do a good job in school, they're labeled sissies. It's gotten so bad when black youth want to do a good job in school, they're called, you're trying to act white. And that's deep. Deep in two areas. First of all, here we are, the people that built the pyramids. First to read and write. And yet now we're going to attribute academic achievement to another race. That's problem number one. The problem number two, do you know how much pressure is on our youth? Trying to, on the one hand, please their peer group that has one set of values, and then please you, teachers and parents, with another set of values. A tremendous amount of pressure is on them. And we have to begin to understand that pressure. We were very much concerned about the Jackie Robinson syndrome. In other words, in the class of 30, we'll have our 1 or 2 black students in our gifted and talented programs, our honors programs, our AP programs. In other words, the Jackie Robinson syndrome all over again. In other words, we're going to take our 1 or 2 top black students and put them in the class of 30 students. Do you know what it's like being the Jackie Robinson of the class? And your peer group teasing you for being in there, and you have to be the only 1 or 2 in that kind of class? There are some other school districts who are trying to close the gap that realize if they want to increase the odds, stabilize black student achievement, 1 or 2 is not enough. In other words, some schools are now looking at, let's say, having 10 to 15 students in that kind of setting. So they can reinforce it not just academically, but also socially. Again, a tremendous amount of pressure, being the only 1 or 2 in the class. And you know what some insensitive teachers in a setting like this, when they have to discuss a black issue, they ask the black child, well, what do you think about that? Do you know what it's like being the only black child, having to be the authority on all black issues, and you don't want to be black, no way, no how? A tremendous amount of pressure. So if we want to increase the odds, we have to increase the number of students in those classes, because schools are more than academic institutions. They are also social institutions as well, and we have to begin to look at that. We also believe that competition is healthy. In other words, we are very much concerned that many of our children are shying away from academic competition, and they are very much involved in athletic competition. In other words, we believe that competition is healthy. We believe it sharpens your skills. We believe that there's a psychology of performance, or let's be clear, the fear of failure. Many black youth are afraid of competing in academic activities and more confident in athletic activities. And what's sad is many schools allow it, not just in 9th grade. As early as 4th and 5th grade, we have many black youth shying away from academic competition and more involved in athletic competition. As I said earlier, we believe the competition sharpens your skills. And we believe that our youth need to be involved in both of these 2 particular areas. In other words, in integrated schools, not desegregated, in integrated schools, these principals have told me, if I have a 50-50 black-white school, then I don't want a 100% black basketball team and a 100% white science fair team or white debate team. And if it means going the extra step, like the Boston